Welcome to Reap What You Sow. I'm Seth Schafer, and today I'm here with a very special guest. His name is Patrick Shannon. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Patrick is a journalist who has written for several publications in Los Angeles and is a good friend of mine, and I wanted to have him here. It's been an interesting turn of events where a couple weeks ago you interviewed me, and now I get the opportunity to return the favor. So, again, welcome.
Thank you.
So I want to know, the first thing that comes to mind is when you hear about someone who's a journalist or any sense of a writer, I have this thing in my head where you write stuff, especially in Los Angeles, you sit on the beach and you write things. Where give me actually what happens and what's the real story behind it, because I think I'm not the only one with this.
Actually, it's not entirely inaccurate. The writer's life, you kind of really get to choose it yourself. I mean, I should mention that I'm a freelancer, and therefore I get to choose my own daily schedule. It allows me to write for a variety of publications. But in that sense, there's a lot of unique challenges because similar to if you're any kind of creative or an artist, the structure of your team is going to require management, like a business manager that's going to tell you, hey, you should do this, you shouldn't do this, and guide you in the deals that should be made to advance your career. And then you also have an agent that gets you the bookings. Say you're an actor,
Sure.
They're the ones that help you get connected with studios and whatnot. So as a freelance writer, I have to be all three of those positions.
Yeah.
My own manager, I have to source my own work, and be the talent, if what you call I do is a talent. So if I wanted to go right on the beach, I could absolutely do that. It's really more what's conducive to your style. And so it requires a lot of self-discipline. For myself personally, I do most of my work from home, and I've actually just kind of hit a limit there where I'm eating, sleeping, and working all in the same space, and
Which is hard to separate.
It's really hard to get out of that headspace, and so I'm like toying with the idea of just going to write in a park, going outside where I'm getting some sun, fresh air, or even I'll tell you where I do my best writing.
Let me hear it.
In the car, just
Really?
driving around. Started bringing a voice recorder with me and just recording the conversations that I have, because it's like automatic. I can't stop talking to myself in the car. I feel like a lot of people do this.
It's true. Yeah.
I think that there's some magic combination of the adrenaline induced by not trying to die in the car. Like you have to be hyper vigilant in protecting yourself and making sure you don't piss off other drivers and all of this, that there's like just a flood of stimulus coming in, and so much, like your brain is just firing.
I definitely think there's something also about the isolation, and if you have the windows up and you're by yourself, then you're focusing on something else, that it opens kind of a floodgate so that there is no blockage of thought. It just rushes out because you're by yourself, and then you're focusing on something else, which doesn't allow you to really think about what you're saying as much. It's a little more natural.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's quite common for writers to get a draft out or like lay some ideas down and then take that with them on a walk, go be in nature. And it's not just about, reconnecting with the earth or whatever. It's about oxidating your brain and really trying to get more fluid self-criticism out.
And that's one of the things I've heard and talked to a couple other people about, is that if you're working in sleeping in the same area and you're doing all this stuff, is that sometimes your brain won't know that this is my sleeping area, and then when you lay in bed, if your desk is right there, you associate this with work, and then all of a sudden you're laying there and it's 4 a.m. and you're like, I can't sleep. Well, it's because you're doing other stuff that is supposed to be where you go to bed, or things like that. So I find it interesting when people work from home. Curtis is our director here who's doing all the camera stuff and things like that, and he works from home. So it's interesting to see that balance of self-discipline to being able to be like, I have to get work done now.
Well, previous to, our previous conversation before we started doing this recording, we were talking about symbols, and this is a great example of that, where my bedroom, my primary function of the bedroom is to sleep, and the apartment is supposed to be a sanctuary where I can decompress from all of the turmoil and stress that I have to endure through the work.
Right.
And so it would probably behoove me to try to develop a better relationship with my symbolic productivity and understand what conditions need to be set in order for myself to be hyper productive.
And I feel the same way of for a long time I lived in a place that wasn't exactly the best living conditions. So when I came home from work where I was already stressed out and I was supposed to be at the place where I can decompress, I'd come home to things going on, and then I wasn't able to decompress and I was just unhappy. So separating, sometimes it's really a necessity to separate those two, or at least have some sense of boundary where you can actually make some peace with your home being your sanctuary and being a place of relaxation and feeling safe.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you if you meditated.
Sometimes I haven't been able to ever be consistent enough. And actually the last time I meditated, I go for I can do 5 minutes at a time is a good number for me. And I was sitting right there and I was stressing out. I was feeling it. I was everyone's been telling me I should meditate. I put on this Headspace app. I put it on and I was 15 minutes. I'm going to do something new. I'm going to do 15 minutes. Dude, I fell asleep sitting right there and missed a meeting and woke up so stressed. And I was I thought this was supposed to be good for you. And then I'm just pissed off calling this guy I'm sorry, I'm going to be a couple minutes late. Is that okay? And it was this whole debacle that I've ended up putting myself in. And then since then I have neglected to do it.
Yeah.
Because of my own.
I mean, I think I'm in a point in my life where I'm really starting to accept the fact that anything worth doing is painful at the start, and you have to fight for anything worth having. And so I'm having this conversation with my friend yesterday, and I'm a strong advocate for people getting in the gym and taking care of their bodies. And for me as a writer, eating cleanly and exercising allows my cognitive function to execute.
Be enhanced.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm only as good as my brain is functioning, and so I need to take care of it as much as I can. And I'm not great at that. I'm not Puritan in that sense. But
right.
So she's complaining about cardio, hates doing it. Most people hate doing cardio. Running sucks. It's just brutal. But the thing is, it gets better the more you do it. Lifting weights gets better the more you do it. Meditating gets easier the more you do it. You can only do 5 minutes now, but eventually the pain is going to subside. And the metaphor or the analogy I can make to working out is when you first start working out, feeling sore is awesome. Because you did something. It's a symbol of your productivity, right?
Yep.
And then all of a sudden, a few months into it, you stop getting sore, and it's oh man, I don't know if I'm making any progress. If I'm doing
anything?
Yeah. And so then your brain all of a sudden switches to want to hunt that pain. It's a good, healthy stress, and that as long as you're in that kind of a safe realm of discomfort, that your time is worthwhile, and you're learning new tricks, you're developing. You're not the old dog that can't learn new tricks. And so that's a reminder of your vitality, and that you're not stuck in the same position that you are now. Things can get better.
So when did you discover that this is something that is beneficial for you personally?
So you're talking about
being healthier,
the mind-body connection?
Yeah, just trying to figure that stuff out.
So, I mean, in my early mid-20s, I was having a lot of cognitive issues. I was drinking a lot and experimenting with drugs and everything, and they were definitely playing a lot. Yeah. I should mention, as a journalist, I primarily work with like culture, arts, and entertainment, and so I've always been enveloped in like counterculture, and the last 6 to 8 years I've been chasing electronic music culture, and it's heavily laden with, you know, drug culture, and
you see all kinds of stuff
right
there.
exactly. So that was like, I was like,
they make interesting stories.
oh yeah, absolutely, as long as I can remember them. But so, you know, the reason why I bring that up is like, so this has been my background for a long time.
Sure.
I've grown out of a lot of that. But this is one of the reasons, is because I couldn't remember anything. It was like really affecting my work, just my job functions. And then I'd like read books and I couldn't remember the characters' names. Couldn't remember the last chapter I read. Like, my memory was just like shot. And I was really, really worried. I was losing a lot of my vocabulary, like words that I just had been using my entire life.
And as a writer and journalist, those
are my colors.
You need that.
Yeah. Like if I can't, I need a more sophisticated vocabulary. I don't need to dwindle it, you know? So
sure.
Then I got really stressed out of like, am I losing my craft? Well, what the hell else? What am I going to do now? Now I don't have an identity. What's the purpose of life? And, you know, you just go down the rabbit hole from there. And so
I can only imagine you sitting there just with a pen and a blank piece of paper, like, who am I?
Right, exactly. It's like a real existential crisis here. And I was living a very unhealthy life. And then I got turned on to this nutritionist, and I think she's a neuroscientist, Dr. Rhonda Patrick. And she's a frequent visitor on the Joe Rogan podcast. Right on. And so she's talking about the gut biome and its relationship to depression. They talk about the keto diet a lot. And I think I have brain damage because I have such like terrible memory loss. And so I'm like, I need to figure out a way to help, instigate neurogenesis. Like, I need to make new brain cells and new connections. And so like I completely flipped my nutrition, really focused on the gut biome. That helped with dealing with stress, helped me, with depressive states. Started hydrating way more. I was so casually drinking water, and now I'm like a consistent like gallon and a half at least a day and everything.
A lot of stuff you drink will dehydrate you too.
Exactly.
Which not everyone thinks about. Drink a bunch of coffee.
Right. And so I've been doing keto for a while. I don't know, 2 years now. And the interesting thing is a lot of memories that I completely let go of, like even, when I was drinking really heavily, like blackouts, were like coming back. There were things that like I just straight up, like nights I just gave up on completely.
And
like they
nowhere?
were stored back there, and like they came, not all at once, but they like come back in bits and pieces. Vocabulary increased. I used to get so proud. Like, I remember when I first moved to LA and I was looking for an apartment, and you have to go see 30 of them or whatever. And so you're running through all these addresses, and I was looking for this one address, and I gave up on the idea that I could just remember things in short term like that. And I'm like walking, oh wait, what was the number of this building again? And then like I just remembered it. And I was like, shit, I can do it again.
I can do it.
It's like a new release on life.
Back.
And then, I was starting to chase that. And then so now I just don't disconnect. You can't disconnect mind and body. A highly functioning mind requires a highly functioning body, and vice versa. It's just everything. And so like,
I think that it's interesting though to think about that you start this new journey, and then all of a sudden, well, not all of a sudden, but now you have the idea like, I'm not confined to my room. As a writer, I don't have to work here, and it's almost it's interesting to think that it's almost like you have a freeing where, oh, I can do this. I can work somewhere else. I can go out and write in a park. I can go write on the beach. You have that option. You're one of the few professions that does, and for whatever reason, you didn't and then all of a sudden, you start doing different things, you start thinking differently, working your mind, and now you have the epiphany that, oh, I should separate this stuff. I can. And
yeah, I mean, we're definitely all like slaves of our own perspective.
Oof.
And, it can be a good thing. It can be a bad thing. It's like, it's just your perspective. It's how you're going to look at it. And
how cliche.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, lately, in the past couple years, I've been putting a really hard emphasis in a lot of my free time into attempting to dismantle my perspective and get as close to reality as I can. I mean, I guess that's a process of enlightenment. Nobody knows if they can actually achieve it, but I feel like I have X amount of years on this earth, and that's like a worthy goal. I won't reach it, but if I can get as close as I can possibly can, then I know that
you won't reach it with that perspective.
Right. I'm just really, I've done a lot of stupid things as everyone has done. And a lot of those things I feel like were guided by the motivations of like subconscious or like things that happened to you in your childhood that you forget about or whatever. And I hate the idea of this micro me pulling levers and I don't have a say in it. So Therefore, no, I don't have free will. I'm not actually consciously making decisions. Something else is influencing me. I'm not in control. And that's terrifying. And so like I would like to be in a place where I can get as close as I possibly can to really have a shot at using my intellect and intelligence to craft the right choice.
There's an interesting thing that people talk about how your decision making, I guess it's more probability of that. If the more decisions you make, the higher the chances are you'll make a bad one. And it's interesting when you start thinking about, well, if you start putting things on you make it more automatic. So every day I wake up and I eat eggs. Next thing you know, you don't think about that. Therefore, there is no decision. You just do it. Yeah, you're flowing. If you even like the picking out your school outfit before as a kid or whatever, you don't have to think about it. You just do it, which is one less decision you have to make before you make a bad one. So when you start doing stuff that allows for less decisions, then you'll supposedly you'll make better ones. And if you base it off the idea that that's a probability or whatever, but most of the time, if you're making less decisions, your head doesn't have to think as much, and it's automatic. It's like driving. It's like things that just kind of become automatic, where you don't, you see something in the road and you swerve. There's no time to think about anything. It's just boom, you do it. And I think that there is for people in the creative field, there's just a thing where you try to make less decisions. Like if you get hung up in that about, oh, should I talk to this person, or should I write this, or where should I write this, or it bogs down the mind. So some of that enlightenment, I think, also comes from almost being a little more instinctive and decisive on what you want to do.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on a point specifically for creatives. They call it letting it bleed or bleed it out.
Right.
I definitely got in my own head the last 5 years doing creative writing. I went to creative writing school. My passion has always been fiction. I think it's just like creating something out of nothing is just the hardest thing you could possibly do. And I love the challenge. But so I got in my head trying to decide what I should be writing, what are good leads, what are bad leads. Because journalistically, you only choose you go through the selection process where, people bring stories to me and I pick maybe 10% of them. Then I submit those to an editor, and then they might take one of them. And so before you write the first word or do the first interview, you've had to make a lot of decisions, right?
To already get there.
Exactly. And so and that's a rationalization. And so I was applying that same thought process to creative work, and it could not be more different, because I was constantly trying to say, okay, this is a good story I should follow. This is a good prompt I should investigate. These are, you invent a character and you say, okay, I want to see where this is going. Well, what is the rest of his or her family look like? And you try to like flesh these things out. No, okay, this one isn't going anywhere, but what about this other character, And so I'm like constantly battling with myself, trying to figure out which one which one is worth my time, because time is the most precious thing I have. And if I waste any of it, then shit, I got to start all over and all this.
The world is over, dude.
And so
everything falls to shit if your time is gone.
Yeah, exactly. And so this just happened maybe a month or two ago. I was just like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to write all of them. Write every character that pops in my head. Write every prompt that pops in my head. Even if I don't flesh the whole thing out to completion.
Just get it out.
Just get what I'm thinking out. And then it's in a place. And I can always refer back to it. It's archived. It's there.
I subscribe to that.
Like a madman, just like place them all over my wall and just connecting them with strings and all that.
Like a movie.
Yeah, exactly.
You're like a detective.
But
for
I think what that does to your mind is it depletes its reserves of creative inspiration. And it goes, oh man, all of your stories are out. Well, we need to fill that chasm with more creativity and creation. And so the more I was writing, the more I was able to write creatively. And
I also think that.
Did you just really interrupt me on your own podcast?
I did.
I was like flowing.
Dude, I have to stop you, because I think that there's something that you're also missing of removing that mind garbage. And when you get it out there and you can see it, you also can bring more to it. You can bring more to the ideas that you have, and it allows you to not only just create, but you think better because you're getting rid of all these thoughts and you're putting on paper. And as a writer, I think that that's valuable to anyone in any business and anything. So even though it may have been just about these ideas, stories, or whatever, specifically to, writing as a occupation, but for other people who are in different industries, I definitely think that that's a valuable skill and an asset to anyone who does stuff like that. Mm-hmm. That's why I stopped you.
Oh, sure. No, just
get out,
giving
dude.
You shit, right?
It's over.
I asked you if you meditated earlier, and yeah, it takes practice, and with so much going on in people's lives, it's really hard to be still. And therefore, I would say a precursor to meditation is journaling. And I mean, obviously I have a predilection for journaling as a writer, but I can't see any industry or any professional or any individual that wouldn't find some benefits from getting their thoughts into a place that isn't their mind. Like, you got to put them in a closet. Not store them forever, in a closet. I'm not talking about repression, but like
getting them out.
If not, you're just going to ruminate over them.
I subscribe to that. Now, one of the things I did want to talk to you about is what we kind of touched on a little bit about the process of how this stuff works. So how does it work with getting a written piece into the hands of a publisher? And how does that process work? Because I don't know. I just know that someone calls you and says, hey, we want to do this, and then it goes. I don't know what it's like to be the guy who writes the article, guy or girl who writes the article and does this. So explain to me the process from either the idea of a story all the way to it being published and put out by a publication.
It's a good question because it's changed a lot over the last
what I wanted to talk
20
about
years. I think it's changed a lot. Granted, I didn't have any experience prior to my own. But I believe pre-social media, pre-internet, the digital media, things were journalism was much more of a rogue kind of cowboy knocking down doors kind of
showing up.
Yeah, I mean, you had to play a little dirty to really get the real story. Whereas now I think it's a lot safer. And what I mean by that is, so I work primarily with musicians. That's like 90% of my content. And so that process is a publicist takes on a client, a musician, and that musician's going on tour. They're putting out an album, and they want to promote that album or tour. And so then they put together this little pitch package of like, this person's so cool and they're unique.
Here's why.
And here's why. They're trying to sell you. They're trying to sell you their product, which is the artist. And so they pitch it to me. And if I'm intrigued, then I go to my different publication. I put my own pitch onto it and try to make it less of a commodity. And try to
make it interesting,
provide some integrity, we call it the angle, what's going to intrigue the audience. Why is this person relevant to our audience?
Sure.
And so then I'm repitching that, or like regurgitating the pitch to an editor. And then none of them will admit this, but they have to go through the process of like, okay, yes, what does our audience want? But also, what do our advertisers want?
That's what keeps them alive.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, the advertisers just want clicks. Like the content doesn't really matter as much as, 100,000 clicks. But the reason why I say it's changed is because very rarely do I get the opportunity to go out and hunt my own stories. Like say when I interviewed you or pitched you, it was like a publicist didn't come to me. I had the opportunity to meet Seth Schafer, hear his story, participate in Sharp Dressed Man, see the shop and everything. And I go, this is a story I would want to read. And so it's it's personal to me. And that way I'm able to sell it much easier. And then when I take it to the editor, it was like,
believe in it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so for the editor, it was just like, there was no hesitation at all. It was like very, very, very clear and obvious. Whereas, I've had, huge top 40 musicians come to me, ask me to do the interview. Is everything okay? Okay. I'm like managing your own podcast.
Doesn't matter to me.
Come to me, pitch the article or whatever, big tour and everything. And I'm just not behind it because it's very generic. It's obvious that they're just trying to,
they want
sell
the publicity.
something. So especially when it comes to entertainment, to me, my perception of the PR world is it's like a bootleg advertising game. It's like, if we can, let's get a free article out of it. And then if we can't do that, we can always spring the 5,000 and buy a quarter-page ad in the paper, But like, we should probably try to get the advertisement for free first, and therefore, a lot of journalism nowadays is this slippery advertising, and that's where you get like, I don't know if you remember the Forbes article that was like Kylie Jenner was like a self-made gazillionaire or whatever kind of thing.
She was on the front page, right?
Sorry?
I think she was on the front page. Yeah. Youngest self-made billionaire, youngest female self-made billionaire, I think is what they had.
See, that is it is interesting. It is an angle, but like at the end of the day, all that served to do was to advertise her makeup line.
Yeah.
And so I have my qualms with it, but it's the way the tide has turned, and I have to kind of play the game in a sense. Not to say that like I'm interested in cheapening my my content, but if I want to stay relevant and I want to keep having the opportunities that I've been given, there's a give and take. There's a sacrifice that has to be made in any professional industry.
You have to, if you want to get there, you got to, I mean, for someone who's writing about music, it's the same thing of, well, a band has to play some shitty venues in order to get the big one. They can't just,
right.
I only take the good ones, not at first. And, you have to kind of,
right.
You have to keep it going at whatever means.
There is a flip side of that too. I shouldn't be so cynical. I've definitely taken a lot of stories that the pitch was very lackluster, and I wasn't really compelled to take an interest in this subject. And then I get there, and they look like the douchiest person, and I'm just like, this is, oh God, I'm stereotyping this person, and they fit the stereotype and all this, and I'm just like so, pessimistic about it. And then we sit down, and it's like a great conversation, and they just go above and beyond all my, expectations, and I'm just like, damn it, Pat, like, you really need to loosen up. Like,
man, that is something that I have, since moving to California, I have removed a lot of that from myself, where I have zero expectations for pretty much everything. And I say yes to every event. I don't care what it is. And if I choose to, I will have a great time. And whereas before, I would have said no to a lot of things. I would have said no to a lot of events. I would have got there, been disappointed, been mad about stuff. And I just, something about it, I just say, I'm going to have a good time. I don't care what the event is. I don't care who's here. I'm going to have a good time, and I'm going to make it fun. And every single time, I've had a good time, and I've made it fun.
It really is perspective. And I had a great conversation with my sister. My sister is actually the one that introduced me to Seth.
Right.
It's the link here. And we're talking about our dating lives and how I keep dating the same girl over. They're carbon copies of each other. And we're like, why do we keep attracting these idiots? And why are we attracting them? And why are we attracted to them? And Katie just goes, my sister Katie goes, if you keep going through the same experience in different, environments or across different people or whatever, and you're the common denominator, it's you. And so, like, gosh, it's really just, it's your perspective that's getting you there. And there's no easy answer or like quick fix to adjust your perspective. But I think I'm a person that's particularly prone to anxiety. I've always have been as a kid. And
with that perspective.
So that's the second time you said that.
I'm sorry.
See, now you interrupted my train of thought.
I do that. I'm a train wreck.
Just ask me another question.
What was I saying? With the anxiety. Look, as a kid, you were prone to anxiety.
And perspective. I don't even remember, man.
That's okay. Well,
that happens. It was almost there. It was almost there.
You said earlier that memory is starting to really get stronger. So I guarantee it will click in a little bit here. But
as soon as we hit stop, it'll come back.
It'll come. That's convenient, I would say. But so one of the other things that I wanted to talk to you about is like, what would you say that if we make suits and stuff, so we're in the place of style, fashion. What would you say about your personal style? What do you like? What don't you like? What do you see that's new that you're like, nah, like clothing wise? Do you have any opinions? I mean, do you care?
I'm going to totally bastardize that question here. Okay, so this is actually going to draw on something you were talking about earlier, which is making decisions, how many decisions you make in your day. Mm-hmm. So I subscribe to the idea that, you have a finite amount of energy per day, per week, per month, per year, and per your lifetime. And so you need to be really careful about the things that you allocate energy towards. And life is this game of understanding, almost acquiescing to the fact that there are going to be difficult decisions, whether you seek them out or not. They're coming. Tidal waves are constantly coming, and so you need to like prepare yourself to have the clarity and the energy for when those come. It's insurance, right?
Right.
And therefore, fashion is not something I'm willing to commit any energy to at all. And I have a reason for it, and to me, it's just
we're waiting.
To me, it's just a utility. It's something that you have to do.
Do you?
Well, assuming I don't intend to get arrested, for being a nudist in Los Angeles. But it's okay. So it's like, I understand some people like to wear jewelry and rings and everything like that, but to me, it's like, it's just another thing to worry about. It's another thing to get hung up on, and that you have to clean, and it's just adding more baggage to your life. And so I'm pretty routine. I mean, my everyday wear tends to be like, band shirts from shows that I went to in high school and everything. I'm like so glad that I kept all of those. I was actually talking to a friend earlier about this shirt I have from May 30th, 1998, the DC 101 chili cook-off. I was like 12, 13. And it was the first.
Still have the shirt.
I still have the shirt. And it was like, I was swimming in it when I was a kid. But, so yeah, to the parents out there, get extra larges for your like 8-year-old kids, because they're going to love them when they're 25. But this is the first concert I ever chose to go to. Like my parents.
Big word there. Chose.
Large emphasis. Your parents take you to concerts, and it's like that you're dragging me. But this is the one that I saw that I was like, I want to go to this. It was Everclear, Smash Mouth, and Blink-182. Dude Ranch had just come out. Standing in the crowd. I think they're playing Damn It, and a mosh pit breaks out, and my mom is not having it. She like gets her purse out, smacking everybody. Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it! Like, I'm saying like 1 5'4" woman against like just a sea of teenage angst, and then like some.
I would pay to see that.
Right, and you know my mom. And then a crowd surfer lands in the middle of this pit and kicks my mom in the face. Ooh. So we have to spend the rest of the day in the med tent. But the thing is, I have that T-shirt in my closet right now.
And there's a story associated too.
Exactly. And so to me, the clothing fashion, again, is just a symbol of nostalgia. I prefer to utilize it as a symbol of nostalgia. And so therefore I tend to hold on to things, and I'm much more simple. However, I was in conversations with you about a suit, and what a suit symbolizes is that you're on the team of team professional. And I think as a youth, I tried to distance myself from professionalism because
rebel without a cause.
It was rigid, and it was confined. It was a box and all that. And it's not just rebellion, but it's trying to understand the boundaries of life, what you can get away with and what you can't.
Sure.
And I would say at this point in my life, I'm much more interested in team professionalism. And so I would rely on people like you. You say when you make a suit for somebody, you spend a lot of time interviewing them, trying to get to know them so you can exhibit their personality
in
the wares.
Yep.
And I'd be like, nah, just make me look cool. Like, screw the interview, Seth. I trust you. And that was.
I already got it, man.
Right.
I tricked you into
that's this.
Now you're interviewed. Now it's easy.
Yeah, God.
Well, so the thing that I would like to point out though is where working out and being healthy is your form of making yourself feel good. Some people find that in different areas of life. So one of those things could also be clothing. And that's why I ask, because some people, it does make, like, I do feel good when I dress up. And I feel awful when I work out, even afterwards. I don't get a euphoric like, oh yeah, I'm just bent that I wasted that much time doing something that I didn't enjoy doing. And it is work for me to do that. Whereas, I've been doing it for my whole life. And it's just one of those things that is now just a necessity. You go do it, and then you do the other stuff you need to do. But when I get to dress up, I feel like, oh man, hey, all right, cool. Yeah, I do it every day. It's literally my job to dress up, but I still enjoy it because I'm like, cool. So some people have different areas that make them feel better.
Sure. I mean, it's our proclivity for control, because we are constantly trying to keep this top or dreidel, maybe, spinning. You're constantly trying to keep this thing that wants to fall over spinning. And so therefore you have to stack it with all these small practices of control. And for some people, fashion is a way of controlling their lives. For me, the routine aspect of working out, and it's exactly the same as writing for me. When, you know, the two parts of my day that I have the most control is going bouldering or lifting or yoga or whatever, and nutrition. And then when I'm able to string words together, and I feel like those words are like my bitch, and I can just put them where I want them to go,
you know how they work,
and create something that's never been strung together before, even though it probably has. But
you did it though.
You know that feeling. It's this overwhelming flushness that comes over that we call like the zone, where you know what you're doing is right, and it's like it's meaningful.
Flow state.
Yeah, flow state. I guess that's what it is. But to me, it's that's why they say, like, you know, no matter what, make your bed in the morning, because at least you're setting one first step of control over this chaotic world that you know you're not going to have control over.
When you come home,
sanctuary state.
The bed is made.
Yeah, exactly.
So we're about to wrap up here. Anything that you feel as if you want to say? Anything? Any short little lessons, things that people can take home and, you know?
Yeah, I work in the media, and I have to be a guardian of that. I grew up thinking that, you know, watching great journalists and thinking that was a career I could strive to, and then I get here and it's completely changed. Like, I wanted to be Kurt Loder, but Kurt Loder's job doesn't even exist anymore. So I was striving for a goal that was completely unobtainable, and it's unobtainable because of the influence of how casual we are with social media. And so the concept of media has just been very frivolous, and I touched on that a little bit about, you know, how stories are sourced and everything. And so I would just say, think twice before you post things on social media. Could you live with what you're saying forever? Because whenever you upload something to the internet, whether you delete it or not, it lives there forever.
Yep. How many screenshots have you seen of someone's stuff they put out and everyone just knows?
And that's the difference between old media and social media. Old media, when they print something and they're wrong, they never take it down. They print a retraction and they own up to it and they're responsible. But in social media, you're not held to those principles.
Same things.
Right. And I think that's dangerous.
And I think that's good advice. Well, hey, thank you for being here, man.
Thank you.
Great conversation. I'm glad to have you on here, and we'll be back.
Thank you. Thanks again.